The time is 3 o'clock. I'm calling to order the Sarpy County Board of Equalization. We have present Commissioners Kelly, Burmeister, Warren, Mixon, and Klug, as well as our County Administrator Bonnie Moore and Tabitha Bellucci from representing the County Clerk. We also have our Treasurer Jeff Mikesell and Assessor Dan Pittman present. Please silence your cell phones and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda item 4, public comments. Is anybody here to make any public comments? Seeing none, let's see. We do have a copy of the Open Meetings Act on the wall in the boardroom. Moving on to agenda item 5, the consent equalization agenda. These are items for business that are routine, which are expected to be adopted without dissent. Agenda item 5.1, minutes from the January 28th, 2025 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion Burmeister, second by Commissioner Kelly. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
Thank you. Agenda item 5.2 is the motor vehicle applications. Our Treasurer, Jeff Mikesell. Oops.
Any questions on this one in particular? Easy.
Yep, sorry. I was going through these one by one, but it's the consent agenda, so we can.
We already approved you.
We already approved you.
Man.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, moving on to item 6, the regular equalization agenda. Tax corrections 17,529 through 17,535. Dan Pittman.
Good morning. Do you have any questions on these?
Any questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Warren, second by Kelly. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right, agenda item 7 is executive session, which we do not have a need for today. Moving on to agenda item number 8. All agenda items have been addressed as published. The Board of Equalization is adjourned. All right, the time is now 3:03. We'll call to order the Board of Commissioners, Sarpy County Board of Commissioners meeting. We have Commissioners Kelly, Burmeister, Warren, Mixon, and Klug, as well as Administrator Bonnie Moore and Tabby Bellucci representing the County Clerk's Office. We still have Jeff Mikesell, Treasurer, and Dan Pittman, our County Assessor. Any comments from the public for the County Commissioners meeting? Seeing none, we'll move on. Commissioners' comments and announcements. We'll start with you, Don.
I'm good.
Nothing, thanks.
Thanks, Angie.
Nothing.
No comments?
Agenda item 5, consent commissioners' agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Warren, second by Kelly. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right, agenda item 6, moving to the regular agenda. 6.1, Resolution 2025-30, Tri-Counties, Sarpy, Lancaster, and Douglas Resolution concerning unfunded state mandates for the 2025 legislative session. Bonnie Moore, County Administrator.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a Tri-County resolution. There was a similar resolution passed by Douglas and Lancaster already, recognizing that the interest of the big 3 counties is a little bit different than other parts of the state. We thought it was important to put forward a resolution that addresses some of those interests. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Warren, second by Burmeister. Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
6.2, Sarpy County Quarterly Financial Dashboard Report, Q2 Fiscal Year 2025 Financial Update. Dan Talekas, Chief Financial Officer. Hey, Dan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So included in your report and on your screen is the 6-month or quarterly dashboard report for the period ended December 31st, 2024. Wanted to go through this a little bit because the format has slightly changed from what it's been in the past to what it is for this quarter. A couple sections that did not change are the first page on the dashboard report, the revenue section. We've collected $88.7 million in revenue as of December 31st. That represents 51% of our revenue budget. A couple items here. We've collected 61% of our local revenue. That number is higher than 50%, mostly because local revenues are budgeted conservatively. And then also 35% of our property tax revenue as of December 31st, 2024. Just wanted to let you know that that is very normal for that first 6 months of the year. And in fact, it's the exact same percentage that it was this time last year. On the expense side, we spent $103.7 million, which is 37% of the expense budget. A couple items here, operating expenses and capital outlay. Those two categories are slightly under 50%. That is typical. Those types of expenses generally defer a little bit more to the second half of the fiscal year than the first half of the fiscal year. And then debt retirement, we'll talk about that here in a little bit more detail. But that 19% represents interest payments that we made in the first half, no principal. The personnel costs, we spent $45 million on personnel, that's wages and benefits in the first 6 months of the fiscal year. That represents 49% of the budget, so we're right on track. Employment numbers are 680 full-time employees compared to 676 this time last year. I'm sorry. So personnel cost, $45 million, 49% of the budget, 680 full-time employees compared to 676 last year at this time. The next section is a snapshot of the cash position of the county as of December 31st, 2024. A couple notes here. General fund, we had $20.3 million in cash. That includes the $19 million reserve that we have. Just wanted to bring up this spaghetti chart real quick to show you that it's pretty typical that the general fund cash is the lowest of the year in the months of December, January, and February. That's very typical. We're on that same path this year. And it's not atypical for the months of January and February, particularly, for us to actually be utilizing some dollars from the reserve as operating cash when that cash is at the lowest. In December, we weren't quite there, $20 million of cash, $19 million of that's in the reserve. Just wanted to show you that to you. Both graphically, in addition to how it's on the dashboard report. In total, the county has $94.8 million in cash as of December 31st, 2024. I've noted a couple other funds that maybe have some reserve or some reserve type activity in it. The landfill has a $4.3 million post-closure reserve. The sewer funds have a $2.6 million reserve for the Sarpy County and City's wastewater agency for their NDEE loan that the county has backed. And then the health insurance fund has a $1.4 million reserve that was funded by the county as well. The last section on this report, page 1 of this report, is the self-insured insurance fund. This is a new section, so I do want to spend a little bit of time here. I'm going to run you through the first column of actual year-to-date figures. In terms of revenue, we've recorded $1 million in employee contributions. These are deductions from employees' paychecks, COBRA payments, retiree payments towards the health insurance fund. We've recorded $5.1 million in employer contributions to the fund. And then there's some slight miscellaneous revenue and interest revenue for a total revenue of $6.3 million. On the expense side of the self-insurance fund, we've paid $4.3 million in claims, $950,000 in stop-loss premium, and $50,000 in administrative costs. So our total expenditures have been $5.3 million. So for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, that fund is running positive by almost $1 million. If you shift 2 columns to the right there, I have a column of this fund's activity lifetime. So this is from December 2023, when we moved from the partially funded self-insurance plan to the fully funded self-insurance plan. Very similar activities here, $2 million in employee contributions, $11.6 million in employer contributions. And again, that includes the $1.4 million that was funded by the county for a reserve. On the expense side, we've paid just under $9 million in claims. Again, this is as of December 31st. And as of that date, there were $500,000 in claims activity that was incurred, but not yet paid by that fund. So that $500,000 would be in addition to that $8.9 million. And then we have our stop loss premium over the lifetime of that fund at $1.9 million and administrative fees at $123,000. So over the life of that fund, there is a $3 million cash balance in that fund at the end of quarter 2, 2025. So again, I want to reiterate that $3 million cash balance in that fund. We still had to pay $500,000 in claims activity, so that's $2.5 million of actual cash in that fund. And then of that $2.5 million, $1.4 is sitting there as a reserve. So the plan premiums exceeded claims by about $1.1 million since the lifetime of that plan, which coincides with a year or 12 months of data as of December 31st, 2024.
Dan, will we ever advance or grow the reserve amount of 1.4 to a higher number?
We'll continue to look at that as we move forward. I know that that's a number that we've talked about with our advisors during the renewal process. We'll continue to talk about that.
Yep, thank you.
And that reserve fund is there so that, for what reason? If there's...
Yeah, so I mentioned here that over the 12-month calendar year, premiums exceeded claims activity by $1.1 million or so. That's not going to happen every year. We know there are going to be years where that is the other way. You know, it's not in the county's advantage. And if we have successive years in that scenario, that's where that reserve is there for.
Okay. And we're following guidance of experts on how much it should be, right?
Correct.
And one last question, the stop loss premium, that's for the additional insurance to cover the excessive claims?
Correct. So our stop loss premium, our stop loss coverage is set at $150,000 right now.
And the other reserves that we have, sorry, did I interrupt you?
Absolutely. No, you're fine.
Okay. The other reserves that we have, so the loan reserve on the sewer agency, is that a required reserve?
It is a required backstop, yes.
Okay.
And that is currently that $2.6 million that I note there. That's for the NDEE loan. We also have WIFIA loan reserve that we'll start establishing here soon.
Okay. Those are required by the loan documents, correct?
Yes.
And then the landfill reserve, is that a required reserve?
That is also required, yes.
Okay. And that leaves us with the general fund reserve, and that's based on experts' guidance?
That is based on, so the GFOA recommends 2 to 3 months of reserve. Our policy sets a minimum of 2 months reserve. That equates to 2.6 months of reserve. So we're meeting our policy. We're right in the middle of that GFOA recommended range.
Okay. And that affects our bond rating, right?
It does. It does. It's a positive effect on our bond rating.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions on page 1 of this dashboard report?
Where are the on the cash positions, where is the cash held?
So the cash is held by the treasurer's office. They have, I believe it's 8 different banking partners that they use.
Local banks or?
They're all local except for NPATE.
Yeah, which is the state.
Correct.
Thanks.
Yep. Page 2 of the dashboard report is a comparison of revenues, expenses, and cash position currently December 31st, 24, comparatively to where they were December 31st, 2023. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on the first 3 sections. We've included highlights that provide some information on any changes or any large changes in those revenues, expenses, or cash balances by fund over the past 12 months. I do want to spend a little bit of time on the fourth section here, which again is a new section to this dashboard report, which displays the county's debt principal. So I want to talk through these columns here real quick. This is outstanding debt principal as of December 31st, 24. There's really two different types of categories. There's governmental activities, which are your highway allocation bonds, your building bonds, and then there's business type activities, which are bonds related to the stadium activity. So as of December 31st, 24, outstanding principal was $142.9 million in governmental activities, $20 million in the stadium bonds. The next column is the next payment that each of those are due for each of those debt issuances. Most of them are payable in December and June. The note payable is a quarterly payment, which is why it has a different date, but we'll incur that next principal and interest payment in June for a majority of these debt issuances. That next column displays the final payment for each of those debt issuances. And I do want to note the asterisk next to the note payable. The way that this is a note payable on the 1102 building, and the way that debt was structured, we pay $68,000 quarterly towards that. And then on the last payment, October of 2030, it has a balloon payment of $3.5 million. Just wanted this board to be aware that that's coming in the future. I believe that there was some uncertainty as to whether or not the county would still be utilizing that building at the time it was purchased, still in 2030. So that was structured in a manner where the sale of that property would offset that balloon payment. But we'll continue to evaluate how that building is used. I've also noted the interest rate for each of these debt issuances as well. And then off to the right here, I have a chart which shows the next 20 years, what the outstanding principal balance is each of those next 20 years. The dark blue section of the bars is the governmental activities related debt, and the green pieces are the debt related to the stadium.
So can you slide back to the left there a little bit? $142 million in debt, right? Is that a good number or a bad number? Or?
I think it's an appropriate number for what we accomplished with issuing the debt, both from a road standpoint and the new correctional center.
And so that also factors into our bond rating?
The number about the outstanding debt amount, yes, that does factor in. And I imagine, or I would anticipate that if we grow that debt number in the near future, our bond rating could be slightly downgraded because of the amount of debt.
So let's just make the assumption we're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
How much debt, additional debt could we incur before you think it would impact it? Given that some of it's dropping off this year as well, or next year.
I don't know that I want to provide you a number without talking to our financial advisor about that. I think there's probably a 50-50 chance that on the next debt issuance, that bond rating would go down. If it doesn't go down on this one, it might go down if we do 2 more debt issuances.
Okay.
Because the frequency of the issuance of debt also plays a little bit of a part in that too.
Yeah, no, I get all that, but we do have the ability to take on more debt, right?
We do.
And we're not constrained in that way that you know of, right, currently?
There's certain constraints. For example, we have a policy for highway allocation revenue where we can pledge up to 100% of highway allocation revenue towards debt repayment. We're not there right now.
So where are we right now on highway allocation?
Roughly 50%.
50%
of highway allocation revenue goes towards debt payment.
So if our highway allocation is 44 million currently, and we're at 50%, we could take on another 44 million approximately?
I think we could take on more than that.
Oh, okay.
Go
All
ahead.
right.
Yeah, no, if I could. So, a couple things that when we start the process of considering additional debt, especially for the road projects, we've talked about that in 2026. The financial advisor will actually do a scorecard with us that will carry us through a rating through a scorecard. And while they do look at outstanding debt, like Dan said, they also look at the county board's willingness to preserve the tax levy. How much room do you have to raise the levy if you should need to meet your obligations, which you have a lot of room and a willingness to service that debt. The other thing that will happen in 26 when we're looking at the scorecard is some of this debt will be paid down. We'll be on a trend of paying that off. The healthy cash reserves are there, and at this point, the county board has been able to issue all this debt without a levy increase. And so that speaks to the fundamentals, the growth, the economic activity that's happening in Sarpy County. And so I know Dan and I have talked a lot. We want to make sure that we're not leading you on in terms of the debt rating and preparing you for everything. But at this point, I would not have any concerns or express to the board any concerns that we'll have a change in rating. What you will have for sure is a change in interest rate. If you look at those interest rates that you've been able to obtain over these last 10 years, those are pretty impressive. But whatever rate you get, when we look at that 26 debt issuance, will for sure beat the cost of inflation that we're trying to do with that. So I know Dan has had several meetings with Suzanne Gerlach, our financial advisor, Mike Rogers, our bond counsel, as we're a year and a half, maybe two, out from that large bond issue to prepare. So probably can get back to you on maybe some more of those data points in terms of appropriate levels of debt and debt per capita. I know you have that number in there, Dan. So.
Well, the only reason I'm kind of poking at that is because we've got two highway allocation debts we're servicing, and we're going to be servicing a third one here pretty soon. If we're going to get infrastructure built, we've got to pull bonds to do it.
And so what you've done with those highway allocation bonds is you've pledged the highway allocation revenue. That revenue is growing at a pace of at least 5% a year. You still have other sources of funding that you put towards that. So,
well, those interest rates that's almost like free money. I hate to say that, but I mean, when you've got an interest rate now around 7% typical, and you're paying back debt at one less than 2%, there's no incentive to hurry up and pay it back.
Right. And when we do meet with the rating agencies, they understand how we finance our road projects and that developments contribute directly to us. We also get ASIP, and then they understand, obviously, that property tax valuation and economic activity comes with that. So Sarpy County remains a really good investment. And as we've talked a lot of times, if you build it, they will come. And with the sewer agency that's got their infrastructure, a lot of it in, we're primed for that. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Are all the interest rates listed there to the end of the debt, to the retirement of the debt?
That's correct.
Okay. And then it would be, I think what would be helpful, one other column maybe, is a percentage of our debt to our budget as well.
We can certainly provide that. Any other questions?
What do you mean, like revenue or budget? Or you mean operating
No, to our expenses, how much of the debt from the interest?
based on our total operational budget,
Yeah.
not revenue, right?
No, not revenue.
Okay.
Not revenue. How much, because our debt, obviously our debt payment is principal and interest, and how much is that within our budget? That's,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
because that's just looking at projecting all these years, and obviously we're paying down debt, and but it's just nice to see where we're at with all of that, because we obviously the money's out there and we have to pay it back, so.
Thank you, Dan. Very helpful. All right, there's no action on this agenda item. We'll move on to 6.3, Resolution 2025-20, agreement with Breckenhauer Construction, Inc. for the jail demolition project pre-construction fee in the amount of $15,000. Deputy County Administrator Scott Bovick.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is an agreement to engage Beckenhauer Construction as the construction manager at risk with the county for the jail demolition of the West Annex, kind of repairing the site, and then putting parking at the site once the jail is demolished. We do go through a selection process. You've seen the CMAR process and CMGC process before. The committee did review 3 proposals, conduct interviews, and make the recommendation on Beckenhauer. The agreement you have today is to hire them as the CMAR and then also approve a $15,000 pre-construction fee. What will happen is the contractor will work with our architect and our team here to develop the guaranteed maximum price, the GMP, which will come back to you in a few months for approval. They'll also lay out the construction and the phasing schedule for all those activities. We do think pre-con activities will start right away. Again, back to you with the GMP, likely April, May at the latest, and then we want the work to actually get going May, June. So first step in the process, appreciate the committee for the recommendation. Beckenhauer looks like a company that's done a lot of large construction. Obviously, safety is a concern on the site, and we think between them and the architect, we got a good team on this. So happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Seeing no questions, would anybody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Warren, second by Kelly. Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right, up next, agenda item 6.4, Resolution 2025-31, award the sale of Outlot F of Giles Point and the adjacent right-of-way to Windsor Hills Land Management Company, LLC, in the amount of $318,400.23, $108,205.15 for the property, and $210,195.08 for the road contribution. Once again, Deputy County Administrator Scott Bovick.
Thank you, Commissioner. The county board vacated the areas in red that you see on the map for these next 3 items, and then packaged that vacated right-of-way with the gray segments outlined in blue that you see here. We held a public hearing on the sale of those properties as required by statute, and then we published the sale and have received bids. For Outlot F, Giles Point, which is the largest property, as the chair just read, we did receive 1 bid in the amount of $108,205.15 from the adjacent property owner. The property owners or any bidders were aware that a road contribution was required for this project. That calculation is $210,195.08. That was published. All the bidders knew that and were aware of it. What you approved today is accepting that bid from the bidder and also approving the documents to transfer the sale of that property to that property owner. Happy to answer any questions about this.
Any questions for Scott?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, second by Warren. Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right, up next is the next piece of property in the area, Resolution 2025-26, award the sale of Outlot H of Giles Point and the adjacent right-of-way to Real Growth LLC in the amount of $26,502. Once again, Scott Bovick, Deputy County Administrator.
Thank you. Again, the county board followed the statutory process to make this property vacated right-of-way and outlot available for sale. We received 1 bid from Real Growth LLC for $26,502. That's the property up here along Giles Road. They will have the opportunity, they'll have to go through Gretna's planning process, but to incorporate that property into their development. But that will be between them and the city of Gretna moving forward. That happy to answer any questions.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, second by Burmeister. Further questions or comments? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right, and lastly, Resolution 2025-27, award the sale of Outlot H of Windsor West and the adjacent right-of-way to MDC Giles Partners LLC in the amount of $3,000. Scott Bovick, Deputy County Administrator.
And then this is the final property here on the south, the vacated right-of-way and outlot. Did get one bidder from the adjacent property owner, amount of $3,000 that they proposed. And again, they would need to go through the Gretna platting process to incorporate that into their property. And then finally, I would just say, this project's been a long project and a great project, mostly because we had a great partnership with the development community. And knowing that we had to go do some weird things with property because of the alignment of this road made things a little challenging for those development partners. They're very patient with us, and it's nice to get to this point where this excess property that will no longer be needed can get back into development's hands and built upon for the benefit of the neighborhood and the county. So happy to answer any questions.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, second by Warren. Any further questions? Seeing none, please vote. Thank you, Scott.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right, agenda item 7 is executive session.
For the protection of the public interest, I move we go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining and litigation.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, second by Mixon. Please vote. All right. It is now 3:32. We'll go into executive session where our discussion will be restricted to collective bargaining and litigation.
Okay. Yep, we're good.
All right, it is now 4:49. At 3:32, we went into executive session where our discussion was restricted to collective bargaining and litigation. I need a motion that we return to regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mixon, second by Burmeister. Please vote. All agenda items having been addressed as published, the Board of Commissioners is adjourned.